Appeals to order. If you'd all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get underway, there are a few preliminary things that I need to take care of first. But before we get into that, I'd like to take a moment, if we could. Today is December 7th, and 74 years ago today, the United States was attacked in Pearl Harbor. And in the last few weeks, years, and months, we've been attacked repeatedly. So what I'd like to do is take a moment, as we are about to participate in government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I'd like to take a moment to just have pause and reflect for a moment on the values that our government has, that we're all a part of, and pray that those who would undermine that and attack us for that are not successful. Okay. I don't have my cheat sheet with me tonight, so I'll try and do this from memory. Before we go, the fire exit is located to your left. In the event of a fire, an announcement will be made. Move in a calm and orderly direction to the exit. Use either the north or the south stairs to exit the building. Do not use the elevators. We will call the cases in the order in which they appear on our agenda. Copies of the agenda are on the table by the door as you come in. We will, when we call the case, the applicant or their representative should come to the podium, identify themselves by name and address, then raise their right hand to be sworn. Then after they're sworn, they can present their case. During the presentation of their case, the the board may ask questions or have comments for them. When that process is all completed, we will then open up to public hearing. There are three categories that we've identified so far of speakers at the public hearings. The first are those who would like to speak in favor of the application, and we'd ask if you would line up at the side and just come up to the podium and give your name and address. You can share whatever you have with the board in support of the application. When all those who wish to speak in favor of the application have completed their presentations, we'll then open it up to the second category, those who would like to speak in opposition to the application. And when all those people have completed, in the same fashion, identifying themselves, name and address, lining up. When they have completed, we'll open up to the third category, which has only been around for about a year and a half, I think, and it was suggested by someone. They weren't for it, they weren't opposed to it, they just wanted to talk to us about it. So if you'd like to talk to us about an application, that's the third category. Come up, identify yourself by name and address, tell us what you'd like to tell us, and then we will move on from there to the recalling the applicant, and the applicant then can respond to anything that came up during the public input portion of the hearing. Once that is completed, we'll close the case and we'll move on to the next case on the agenda. When all the cases on the agenda have been completed, the board will take a short break, the duration of which will be announced at the beginning of the break, and then after the break we will resume and we will deliberate on the applications in the order that they appear on the agenda and for which the applicant remains present. So if the applicant in the first case on our agenda has left and the second applicant is present, we would take the second application first. Then we would continue to the next application for which the applicant is present. When we've completed all the cases for which the applicant is present, we'll then go back to the top and take those in order that they appear on the agenda for the applicants who have left. If you wish to leave at any point, that's fine. If you're interested in knowing what our decision was, you can either watch us on TV, or you can call the Zoning and Planning Department tomorrow morning after 9 o'clock, and they'll be glad to tell you what our decision was. Our secretary, Michelle, is not here tonight. Donna is filling in and taking minutes. These are not meant to be a transcript of the proceedings. They are minutes. That's why it's important, so that she can capture what you're saying, the essence of it, that when you come to the podium, you speak into the microphone and clearly identify yourself by name and address, so she can make that record. Also, as you can see, our board consists of 7 members, and by law, each member has a term of 7 years, and so one person's term ends at the end of every year. This year, Mr. LaPerry's term is concluded. I understand that there's a possibility that he may continue with us into the next year, which would be very nice, but I want to take a moment to thank him for his past 7 years of service to the board.
I appreciate that, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I'd also like to welcome Andre Evans, who is a member of our board, who's been on sabbatical. Back tonight, he's here to observe and get back into us with January. And Brad has been filling in as a temporary board member that was newly authorized by the town board last year. And Brad, we thank you for your service as well. And I think you'll have an opportunity to be joining us in the not too distant future again, as some of us travel in the wintertime. All right, I believe, did I leave anything out? All right, then we will call the first case.
ZB 1512-1, upon the matter of request by Barbara Katz for an area variance to widen existing driveway exceeding maximum front yard coverage allowable on premises 8 Madison Terrace in an R2 residential district.
Hi, I'm Barbara Katz. I live at 8 Madison Terrace.
Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, I'm applying for a variance. As Donna said, I want to replace my existing driveway, and I want to expand the parking in the front. Currently, in the front, I have a very small deck, which is not very appealing. It's really too small to be usable. I want to tear it down and replace that area to the road with pavers to make it look appealing. Madison Terrace is in White City. If any of you who are familiar with the area, no parking is a major, major issue there. I think what I know what I want to do. It will greatly improve the looks of my property, and I think it'll also improve the looks of the area, and I think it will definitely fit into the characteristic of the area. Like I said, the current deck is basically useless. It slants towards the house. The paint is peeling. I believe you've got pictures. You can see it's not terribly attractive. I do have a patio in the back, so I really don't need that one. Right now, there's a small apron, asphalt apron, parallel to the street in front of my house, which you should be able to see there also. One, it's a very small area. Two, it's not very attractive either. But it's really unusable because directly across the street from it, there's another apron where 2 or 3 cars can park vertically to the street. And there are a lot of cars that come and go from that area, and if I parked on my apron, I know I would get hit. I have quite often, my daughter comes and spends the night. I have an out-of-town friend who comes frequently. My driveway is small, narrow. I want to improve the looks, and I want to make it easier for parking. I can't think of anything else.
Anyone have any questions, comments? I would note that attached to your application was a letter that was signed by 12 of your neighbors, and in addition to that, there were also other letters submitted by another 5 of your neighbors. And those, we also received those. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this application?
Do I sit down?
You can sit, you can stand, you can,
Hello, my name's Sharon Wiederhold. I live at 497 Rock Beach Road, and I'm across from Barbara, so I see her place. And I saw the pictures of what she wants to put in there, and I think it'll look very nice.
and I think you also sent us a letter, right?
Uh-huh,
Yep.
yep.
Okay, thank you.
Evening. Robert Wandersea, 13 Madison, which are diagonally on the opposite side of the road from her. Everything that Barb has said about the parking situation is absolutely 100% true. We do have the parking spots next door to us that there's at least 3 or 4 cars most generally there every time. Her little apron that she does have is actually too small for a car to be parked on it and actually be off of the road. So if she used to use that, the car would be into the road part, and of course, there's no parking in that area. So she's talked to me, showed me what she wants to do on it, and I think it would do nothing but improve the neighborhood. And it's a for the town, if they ever had to come in and do any kind of work on it, that would be an easy thing for them to be able to get the patio blocks out of the way, dig up and then put it back. So that's about what I got to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to the application? Anybody who would like to talk to us about it? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this case.
I wanted
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry.
I had a couple of questions. I noticed I visited the site twice, and when I looked, it looks like in your letter that you're looking for parking for 3 vehicles. And the alternative that I saw at the place was that it appears that 2 cars could fit in the driveway end to end, and you could park a third in the garage. Do you think that? Is that possible, or?
It would be possible. My driveway is very narrow. When you pull in, it's very difficult to get out of the car because the house is right there on one side. On the other side, in the summer, there's elephant grass. And like I said, there's very little room to get in and out.
And the other thing, the other concern that I kind of had about it would, by extending the driveway further in front of the house, it takes away the possibility for on-street parking for other folks in the neighborhood. Because
We don't really have on-street, well, I guess there is on-street
Kinda,
parking.
sorta, I guess,
So,
yeah.
are you familiar with?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
okay.
realize
Yeah.
how narrow it is.
Yeah.
I realize a lot of
Well,
things.
like I said, I wouldn't park on that little apron in front of my house, and anybody that comes to visit me, I tell them not to park there.
Right.
And if you were to park on the street in front of my house, you definitely would get hit with the cars coming and going from the apron. There's a vacant lot across from me where there is an apron.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
Any other questions? All right, now we'll close the hearing with respect to this case.
Okay, next case, ZB 1512-2. Upon the matter request by Mark Patrick for a use variance to operate a boarding kennel on premises 876 through 898 Eastridge Road in a C business district.
My name is Mark Forrest Patrick. I live at 74, excuse me, Arbordale Avenue, Rochester 14610.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
My name is Mark Patrick. Excuse me. and I'm the owner and operator of Tuxedo's Canine Training Camp. I come before you tonight for use variance.
Mark, do you have anybody that can help you
No,
do your
I'm
presentation?
gonna get through it.
You got a
It's okay.
cold?
No, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Use variance to expand our operation of a canine training and daycare center to offer a new and growing service of a boarding. According to the current codes of kennels, are allowed in manufacturing districts unless associated with a veterinary hospital. My current establishment, and a growing establishment in the town of Arundequoit, is located in a commercial district, and therefore I'm filing this appeal. When I opened the business in 2013 and began building the relationship in the town of Arundequoit and their residents, I never expected to be offering the service. Now today, residents and clients are asking for this service. As of today, I have 497 clients on a waiting list for a boarding facility in the town of Arundequoit. If you have shopped around for boarding in the area for family pets, it is nearly impossible to find a location that has available space, let alone a space that you would feel comfortable in leaving your pet. More and more families have family pets because they realize that the family pets reduce stress and offer companionship, along with many other benefits. At Tuxedo's Canine, we will have 18 suites with access to the daycare and the training. While the canine is boarding with us, they will have the socialization and interaction of other dogs. Our facility will be a crate-free, 24-hour attendant to ensure safety in case of an emergency. Each dog will have their own suite and a comfortable bed, blankets, and toys. We will not have an outdoor run for barking dogs, as many people visualize when they say a kennel or a boarding facility. The dogs will still have access to the daycare outside area, which was previously approved by the board in 2013. I might also add that we have had 0 complaints about sound and or barking dogs. We are one of the only daycare facilities in Monroe County that is soundproofed at the expense of $13,000. This also reduces the amount of stress on the dogs and the employees in the daycare. Our hours of operation are currently 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. The only expansion to our daycare hours would be on Saturday and Sunday between 9 and 4 for pickup. I take pride in the fact that I bring people to Arundequoit, as far away as Naples, North Rose, Darien Lake, Hilton, and Leicester, for my training and daycare services. We are a business that takes pride and brings people to Arundequoit. For Tuxedo's Canine Training Camp, the boarding facility is critical to our growth in our current location. Without the boarding facility, people would taking their pets to communities and businesses elsewhere. This is a projected loss of Tuxedo's Canine Training Camp of $230,000 a year. I hope that you will give this strong consideration to my application and vote to grant the variance and allow us to continue to be a part of the community that we have grown to love. Thank you.
Mr. Patrick, hold on. We got some questions, I'm sure.
Okay. I'm sure you do.
All right, the application that you have before us is for a use variance, which is different from an area variance. Area variances require practical hardship. Use variances require a showing of,
The hardship is with the use variance. The area variance is just a balancing of.
and part of the standard is to show that you can't realize a reasonable rate of return on your investment under any of the uses that are permitted. What you, in your letter to us, the most recent submission, you indicated that you so far have spent over $70,000 in terms of investment in the property, and another $30,000 for soundproofing, So that's about 100,000 so far, right?
Correct.
And that's without any, are you renting or do you own?
I rent.
You rent. All right. So you've invested $100,000 into a rental property that you do not own, right?
Correct.
And you indicate that without the boarding facility, you would have a inability to take in revenue that you estimated approximately $230,000 in a year, correct?
Correct.
All right. And what would be your rate of return without the boarding facility on the $100,000 that you've invested so far, if you can tell us that? Well, let me ask you a question. How long is your lease for?
Actually, it's up for renewal next year.
All right. So you've invested $100,000 in a property that you're renting for 3 years.
With the option of renewal.
So an option of renewal for an additional 3 years?
5 years.
5 years. So 8 years into 100,000 would be roughly 15,000 a year, give or take a little. Actually, probably take a little. Close to 15,000 a year in terms of what you'd need to realize. Without the boarding facility, is it unlikely that you would realize that?
That is correct.
So without the boarding facility,
Because we also have to take into consideration that the wear and tear that dogs put on the facility, the constant maintenance and repairs, and now with the cost of labor, because we are a one staff member to every 10 dogs, our labor costs are very high.
all right. So you're without the boarding facility, it's likely that you might not realize a rate of return, right? You might be breaking even if you were lucky.
If I'm lucky, yes.
All right.
On good days.
And with the boarding facility, you believe that you'll be able to realize a rate of return in the area of what? Percentage-wise.
I would say, based upon the number of people that are on the waiting list and that are interested in the boarding, I would say we're probably looking at a 75% increase.
Well, a 75% increase in revenue,
Correct.
but not a 75% rate of return on
No.
it. You're not going to make $750,000
Oh, no.
on your...
I wish.
Yeah, no. So you estimate that your revenue from the boarding would be approximately $230,000 a year, give or take.
Correct.
I'm assuming that, given the size of your waiting list, that you can safely assume that all 18 suites would be rented every day.
Correct. Yes.
And that would necessitate hiring additional staff in order to train, maintain the...
Approximately 6 more staff members, which will bring us almost to 20 staff members.
And then additional maintenance costs. It includes, I would assume...
More soundproofing.
Soundproofing, food for the dogs that are housed there.
Correct.
Right? So your expenses, would it be fair to say that you, with the boarding facility, you might be able to project a return of between 5 and 10% on your 100,000 investment?
Yes.
And without it, you can't realize any rate of return and would likely lose. Is that correct?
Without the boarding facility, I would lose. Yes.
And
that is, one reason why I have not renewed my lease.
and if you were to assume that you weren't allowed to open the boarding facility in your current location, then I assume you wouldn't be renewing the lease.
That is correct.
And you would then lose the $100,000 that you invested
Correct.
and incur additional expenses in relocating your business.
Correct.
And what's an estimate of what those expenses might be?
To relocate my business, we're probably looking close to $200,000.
All right, in addition to the 100,000 that you already invested that would be lost.
Correct.
All right, so,
Because I would be looking for a location that now I would look for a location that I would not have to go through those zoning variances for boarding.
right, so you'd have to find a location like in a manufacturing district if it was going to be in Arundecoit, or
Or along the railroad tracks in Rochester,
somewhere else in another.
or in the town of
municipality.
Penfield.
And so with a $300,000 investment to relocate your business, obviously, it would take you much longer to realize any rate of return on that.
Correct.
So, if I understand, the reason, I don't mean to be picking, but the cases all require that we have dollars and cents proof in front of us in order to support any finding that we might make that there is that you're unable to realize a reasonable rate of return, and we need that if we were inclined to grant your application.
Correct.
All right. So with respect to the
Now, also keep in mind that the space that I have that is bringing revenue into the town of Arundecoit was vacant for several years.
This is the basement of where Best Buy used, or not
No.
Best Buy,
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster used to be, right?
It's been
Under
vacant.
Fonte's,
Correct.
and that's been vacant, I think, if I recall from when you were here in 2013, I think you said it had been vacant for 4 or 5 years at that point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Actually, 7.
7? All right. So space that wasn't bringing in any revenue is now bringing in revenue to the point where you need to.
It's also bringing traffic to that, to that
Right.
strip mall that, right now is 60% empty.
And supporting a large population that, although they don't vote, are important.
Correct. They have a voice, and I'm their voice.
So, and you can help keep that voice down, right?
I can.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments?
Well, I have a question. You mentioned you have a waiting list of 497 people
Correct.
for boarding, and you're only going to have 18 suites. Is that enough, or are we going to be back here in a year from now putting more in?
No, because keep in mind 497 people aren't all going to come at the same time.
Right?
So there's going to be we do a reservation system now for the daycare. There will be a reservation system for the boarding as well. And when those 18 suites are full, then they're still on the waiting list.
You see that expanding from 18 down the road?
Not at this location. Because there's no more space.
Okay.
I will basically have 90% of the basement.
Okay.
Just to make a note, Chairman, in reference to what you're trying to get from Mark to explain the financial. On our end, when they come, and I don't know if Donna's a person to ask, or Nick, or, when they come for this application, obviously there's a printout on the back of it that says, no reasonable rate of return or investment. But is there some type of financial worksheet that they could be given by us to the person requesting it, so they aren't coming in the dark and we're not pulling it out? And it has happened to us before where people do come with no financial information, and we've had to postpone it or table it till the following month so that people can bring their financials to us. This would help them, and it would help us to keep it moving.
I believe they do that in the town of DeWitt, outside of Syracuse. I think they have a worksheet like
I'm
that.
just thinking, Donna, if we had, or Nick,
Yeah, we give them the sheet that the state gave us. The state provides one. We
is it a
give them that.
financial worksheet?
Well, no, it's not a worksheet. It just lists the things to look for, and it could be easier for sure. A worksheet.
Yeah, again.
It took me 4 times to the town hall to
Carrie helped
figure
him.
out.
Carrie helped him a lot.
Yeah, to figure
Well,
out
it's
what
just
exactly I needed and how do I do this, because,
It's kind of a simple profit and loss statement with
Right.
your expenses listed, your fixed expenses, your variable expenses, and then how much revenue you're bringing in, and some type of a net at the bottom, whether it's a winner or a loser, and based on your overall.
Well, but when I spoke to my accountant and I spoke to my attorney about it, they said, according to this, all they want is a spreadsheet of what the boarding is going to bring.
Yeah, again, it's vague.
Exactly.
You know, and to you know, to your credit, I mean, you give us what you thought you were supposed to, and again, our chairman here, he's familiar with it, and he asks all the questions to kind of get it out of you.
Right.
But again, if we had some type of a form that we could give them, a cheat sheet, so they don't come in blind. That's all I have to say.
I think in the time that I've been on the board, I can recall one applicant who actually had everything laid out for us exactly the way we needed. And it's clearly the exception and not the rule, but that's the beautiful thing about some of these things. They can be, you know, interpreted in many different ways. That's why we have
I agree. But
things to
again,
occupy our time on the first Monday of the month.
And one other thing, I just want to compliment you for your business. It seems like a nice one, and I'd like to see it stay.
I do have a question. How long will it take you to open the boarding facility if the board grants the variance?
I have a contractor ready to start tomorrow.
Okay. So,
And my goal, yes, I'm thinking positive here. And my goal is spring break is coming up. I missed the Christmas break, but I'm going to be ready for spring break, hopefully.
That's vacations, border, I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right. We'll open that up to public input at this point. Anyone who'd like to speak in favor of the application, please line up and step up one at a time to the podium. Please give us your name and your address.
My name is Amy Flynn. I live at 131 Oak Lawn Drive. Lifelong resident of Arundequoit, and I support Mark Patrick and his application.
My name is Susan Buckman. I live at 45 Sherwood Avenue, Webster. I was here when Mark first opened his business to speak on his behalf, and I'm still a big fan. I'm not a client, but I am the Rochester coordinator of Volunteers for Joyful Rescues, which there are over 350 people in the Rochester area on my weekly email list. When I send out my weekly email, I frequently get questions from these people, these hundreds of people saying, do you know, Susan, a place where we can board our dogs? Sadly, I have to tell them, I'm sorry, I don't. The best thing I can offer them is to check with your veterinarian. Maybe they have an option. What Mark is proposing are suites, not cages, not kennels. The dogs will have their own little room with their own little bed and their toys and all. If you've been in his facility, you know it's been done first class, custom flooring, spick and span clean, no dog odor, everything's maintained. He pays for the staff and everything he needs to run it right. He is bringing a lot of business into the town of Arundequoit. My husband and I own a business in Arundequoit. We own B&B Automotive on St. Paul Boulevard. We're proud to be a part of this business community, and we're proud to have Mark a part of it as well. And if you go on yahoo.com and look for his reviews, every single one of them is a 5-star review. So he's a man you want to keep in your community, although we'd love to have him in Webster too. So, Mark, there's no dog limit in Webster. If they shoot you down, come see us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Eileen Warren. I live at 612 Shady Glen Circle in Webster. I was a lifelong Arundequoit resident until recently. I am one of the 497 people waiting to board with Mark. He's the only person that I would allow my dogs to be boarded with. They go to daycare with him. I speak from the heart. He will be very unique in having 24-hour care. Boarding facilities don't have that in this area. And we saw what happened to the one boarding facility who caught on fire and no one was there and they lost many, many dogs. So there'd be no way I would trust anyone with my animals other than Mark. That's all.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Dow. I live at 281 Party Road in Arundequoit. We have a dog that's just about to turn 2 years old, and we first started looking for daycare services and boarding services for our dog. We took her to many other locations inside and outside of Arundequoit. Mark was finally our destination where we stayed. He's an amazing trainer, and I believe that he had mentioned, or you had mentioned, that you prefer boarding services to have a veterinary service attached to it, if I heard that correctly?
No,
Part-
under
is part of
the
the zoning?
code, veterinarians are allowed to have boarding attached to their
Yes.
veterinary offices other than in the manufacturing district, but not otherwise, under the
Okay.
code. That's why he needs the variance
Variance.
that he's asking us to grant.
And I would like to just say in support of that, that I would prefer always to have my dog stay with a trained individual who is highly trained in their field of expertise, caring for dogs from a perspective of dog interaction and what's going to be best for the dog, as opposed to a medical perspective, because my dog doesn't need medical care at the moment, and Mark knows where to take them if they do need medical care. But being that I live in Arundequoit now, if Mark were to leave Arundequoit, my business would be going wherever he goes. And I believe that with RGH and other services in the area, other businesses, there's a lot of people that do bring their dogs here for daycare outside of the area, so that's bringing more revenue into this area, into the town of Arundequoit, and the boarding services would only expand on that. I don't believe that anybody would be burdened by it, because the service would be provided at night, the boarding services, you know, being separate from the daycare services. So I don't believe that it would be a hindrance or a bother to any other businesses or homeowners in the evening. And just think that you should allow this to go through.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Annalisa Rogers. I also reside at 281 Party Road, and the we she was referring to were her and I and our dog, Maya, who has been going to Mark's services ever since she was a puppy. And we have experienced firsthand a couple different services within the Arundequoit area, and I have to say that there isn't anything else offered like what Mark offers today. Some of the places we have been I don't even want to call it questionable. It's worse than questionable. It's actually, in my opinion, subpar. When you walk into a place and you see dogs in tight little kennel spaces, it kind of breaks your heart a little bit, because you see them and you can't help but think, but, well, what do they do throughout the day? Do they just sit in these kennels all day? Are they getting the exercise they need? Are they getting the attention that they need? And I'd have to say, no, they're not. They're not giving that type of attention that they would receive at Mark's Tuxedos Canine. So when you think about giving Mark this variance, and I'm going to say giving because I'm going to be very optimistic, when you're thinking about giving him this variance, I hope you do, and consider that if in the event that you do not, that there would be a huge loss, not just to the animal community, but there would be a huge loss as well to the people community who really care for and respect their pets. So I want to say, please do give him this. And besides, I'd also like to keep my money in Arundequoit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Sherry Christ. I live at 46 Havenwood Drive in Arundequoit. I was a lifelong Webster resident, and when I went to buy my first house last year, I chose Arundequoit. Got my first dog a month after I moved in and looked around for a daycare and was just amazed that Mark was right down the street from me. He is not looking to get rich. He does this as a labor of love. He does it right. And I think that the fact that he's not had any complaints shows that he's a good business neighbor in Arundequoit. And were he to have to pick up and move his very successful business, because he wouldn't be allowed this variance, that would just be a shame and a great loss to Arundecoit, which is now a community that I call home. So, thank you.
My name is Melissa Hutto. I live at 3806 St. Paul Boulevard in Arundecoit. And my dog Bella is a client of Mark's Tuxedos Canine. She goes to daycare there 4 days a week. She's been going there for the past year and a half. And Mark truly loves the dogs that go to his daycare. I feel very comfortable leaving her there. He has webcams so I can watch during the day to see what she's doing. She's happy, she's playing, the staff is interacting with the dogs, they're playing with the dogs, they're cleaning up after the dogs. When you go in, I'm going to echo what most everybody else is saying, there is no dog odor at all, it's clean, it's a top-notch place. Bella is actually looking forward to being one of the first overnight guests at Tuxedos. It would be a shame if he didn't get this variance because it is a benefit to the community. It's a benefit not only to the humans but also to the dogs. And again, Mark truly cares for and truly loves these animals. And he's the only person I will leave her with. And it's hard to find, as one of the other women said, to find a boarding place that you're comfortable with and you know that they're going to be cared for, and they're not going to be left in a cage all the time. And the 24-hour boarding service is something that, as a pet owner, I find very important because I wouldn't want to leave my dog somewhere where at 8 o'clock at night, the staff is gone until 7 o'clock the next morning. You know, like, God forbid, there was a fire or some type of emergency, who's going to tend to the animals? So I am totally in favor of Mark and his boarding service as well as his daycare, and wherever he goes, that's where Bella is going. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Marie D'Amico. I live at 116 Pinecrest Drive, and my husband and I bring our dog Walter for daycare with Mark, and we've had him in training classes. Mark isn't just somebody that loves dogs and does a good job. He's not just a small business owner. He's a professional at what he does. And he has training and education. I'm sure you've heard his credentials when he first opened the business here. A couple of things that I don't think came out on his presentation that occurred to me, probably because my father was a small businessman himself, but the improvements that he made in soundproofing, those are fixtures. Those aren't something that he can just take with him and walk out to a rental property. So he's invested a lot, not just in terms of his reputation and his income, but he's representing to you that he's put money into a facility that is not his, and he won't see a return on that if he closes his current business because he can't open the boarding business. There's something also to be said about the loss of a present value of $1. Nobody's making money on their money these days, and you're certainly not making money by fronting all of these expenses, $100,000 in improvements, just to be able to have to leave there when business and client, obviously he's built a clientele, just when you build that clientele, then to have to leave because you can't expand. The third thing that I think in terms of loss is regarding the requirements of the variance is that there is a cost to starting a business in another location, although some people might be able to follow him and bring their pets, their dogs, to his new facility. Some won't, and he's going to have to build a new clientele to some degree, and there is a cost to that. There's certainly, as people have pointed out, a cost to the community of a loss of somebody who is so professional in what he does. Our dog is a small dog, and I think somebody here mentioned that he's not just doing it to make money, although we all have to hopefully feed ourselves, which is a problem in this economy. But on occasion, Mark has called our house first thing in the morning and said, we don't have other small dogs here. Do you want to still bring your dog, or do you want to leave him home for the day? You know, we just want you to know so that he's going to be all alone or whatever. So he didn't have to tell us that. We could have dropped our dog off, paid the whatever it is fee for that day, and not been any the wiser. He's a man of integrity. You don't find people that do the job that he does and brings that kind of support to the community every day. And I would encourage you to look at not just the numbers, but look at the value that he brings here. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Shannon Snyder. I live at 66 Collingwood Drive in the city, and I've been taking our dog Jack to Tuxedos for a while now. He is a frequent flyer. He goes at least twice a week. And about a year ago, my husband and I got married, and we were looking for a place that does boarding because obviously all of our family and friends were going to be with us. So the only person that I trusted would be Tuxedos, and they didn't do boarding at the time. So in order to find a place, I had to research a lot. He actually had an opportunity for somebody out in Hilton, so I took my dog there, but it would have been so much more convenient, and I would have felt so much better knowing that he was in trusting hands at Tuxedos. So this would be a wonderful opportunity for many, many people, and I'm sorry that it didn't happen sooner.
Hello. My name is Deborah Bonsignor. I live at 44 Birch Hills Drive here in East Arundequoit. I have known Mark for a little over 2 years, I think, and our lives have intersected in many different respects. First and foremost, we started out as business partners. Mark is a member of a company that I work for, so we have a business relationship. In addition to that, I have taken my dog to train with Mark, and I am also involved in Greyhound Rescue and have used Mark. Mark and I have interfaced in that respect. So in many different aspects of my life, Mark and I interface, and I have great respect for him. He is an integral business person. He runs an impeccable facility. He's incredibly knowledgeable. And as a dog owner, I have 3 dogs. I would so much appreciate and love to have a local business where I can board my dogs on the occasions that I do go away. I don't have that here in Arundequoit. I have to take my dogs elsewhere. So I highly recommend that you grant Mark this variance from a professional standpoint, from a personal standpoint, and from a financial standpoint for the town of Arundequoit. He's a great businessman and a great asset to this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Emler, 528 Willowgate Drive, Webster, New York. Everything they said about Mark, I can verify. Mark has helped me with one of my dogs. Working with rescue dogs, I usually bring in older dogs, but I did get a puppy, and it was a Puggle. And they should change the name to Who Me, because that's the way they look at you when you ask it to do something. So Mark helped me a lot with that. The other thing I need to talk about besides that, though, is an offshoot of what a business like Mark's brings to us. Working in the shelter business, in the rescue business, you find there are a number of people who bring dogs into their home and don't realize what's going to take to take care of this animal. We get dogs into shelters for various reasons. One of them is because I didn't realize this was going to happen. So Mark is able to take people who don't have the time to train or don't understand how to train a dog and solve their problems in training. If he had a facility for boarding, the people who take on a dog and all of a sudden realize, gee, I can't go on vacation because now I have a dog. This would help that out too. I know it's small, I know it's 18 spots, but it's 18 chances that somebody who doesn't understand what the requirement is when they take in a pet of their time, Mark can help them with that. And we appreciate that in the rescue business, because I'll tell you what, our shelters are full. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angel Angle, and I live at 451 Washington Avenue in Arundequoit. I've been going to Mark since last year. I have a 9-year-old German Shepherd mix, Dutchie, who greets Mark with an "ow" and leaves the same. She absolutely loves it there. I had to put my other dog to sleep last February, and she was totally lost without him. And I looked around for another dog and to keep her company. And I was supposed to go to a meeting place for a dog, and we met at Mark's, and that's how I found out about Tuxedo's Canine. I was so impressed with that I asked if I could bring her there. And she's been going there since 3 days a week for 3 hours at a time because of her age, even though she doesn't act it. I love the fact that there are camcorders, or webcams, that I can actually see her, and I'm so happy. Sometimes it brings tears to my eyes to see that she's actually enjoying herself again, that she actually became a dog again. I've been in the process of looking for another dog also to keep her company, but I want her and whatever dog I get to go to Mark. And I just asked Mark before I came up here if in the kennel situation, if he would have webcams there also. And he said yes. Now, for me, I mean, I don't go anywhere because I'm handicapped and vacations or whatever. But for somebody else, it's a big bonus to be able to see your dog while you're away and know that they're okay. Because I know most of these places just, if you go to your veterinarian, they put them in a cage, they take them out to go to the bathroom, and I don't think they play with them. I don't think they have the time with all the medical stuff that they're facing. You're talking about sweets. This is wonderful for a dog. They're not being kept up. They're going to be able to interact with other dogs. They're not going to feel like, what did I do wrong? And I feel that if it had applied to me, if I did go places, I would definitely ask Mark if I could bring her there to be kept, and I would feel secure and safe just like I do now, and she still would greet Mark with an "oh," and I mean, I can't say enough great things about Mark and his facility, and a lot of these other people have said it, so I'm just reiterating. So thank you so much, and I hope you do approve it for Mark.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone who'd like to come forward and talk to us about it? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing and move on to the next case.
DB 1512-3, upon the matter request by Alex McDew for an area variance to install 6-foot-high side yard fence exceeding maximum permitted height on premises 116 Creekside Drive in an R2 residential district.
Good evening. My name is Alex McAdoo. I live at 116 Creekside Drive. As you know, the zoning laws in Irondequoit.
Raise your right hand.
Sorry.
You swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So as you know, the zoning laws in Irondequoit define the shortest side of your house as the front of your house. So the side yard is actually what I would consider the backyard. There are no doors that lead out to the backyard as defined by the zoning laws. So I would like to put a request in for a variance as for a 6-foot fence all the way around the side yard to the front edge of my garage.
If I understand from looking at the map, the survey map that you provided, what you're asking for, what requires the variance is in the southwest corner of your property. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So if I may ask a question, the variance is not needed for what looks to be the front of the house on the east side. On the east side, which would be to the left of the front door, that did not require a variance to put that particular length of fence up?
Correct. It's only from the back of our neighbor's house, which would be behind us, to the front of the garage.
Is there a particular reason you need all that fenced in that large?
I have two dogs that are bigger dogs, and I think a 4-foot fence all the way up there would be too short for them. And I like the look of the 6-foot fence. It makes it more uniform. And, you know, dogs need their exercise, as all these people can attest to. So
I think you also, in your application or somewhere, you indicated that the doors that go out of your house don't go into the area that you can fence under the code.
Correct.
Okay. So in order to...
yeah, we would have to...
and have them fenced.
Right,
It
we would
has
have
to
to
go-
take them out if I don't get the variance. We would have to go outside and let them in through the gate.
I know we got a letter from your neighbor on the other side of Creekside indicating that he was opposed to the application and felt it was a horrendous sight when he looked across the street at it. And the pictures that he sent us show the fence on the north side and east side of your house to the left of the front door.
Correct.
Which is the part that is allowed under the code because of the way the code treats the corner lot. So what would normally, to most people, would appear to be your front yard is actually a side yard.
Correct.
What would appear to be a side yard is actually your backyard. And what would appear to be your backyard is another side yard, right?
Right. Yep.
And it's the backyard side yard.
Correct.
That you need the variance for.
Correct.
Which is the other side of the house from the Kepler's house.
Correct.
Okay.
So the side that the neighbor that is complaining is the side that does not need the variance.
Right.
Okay.
Did you have any conversation with any of the neighbors before you took on putting up the fencing?
We talked to them as we were starting the construction of the fence, but
in talking to them, did you ask them if they minded, or you just told them you were doing it?
well, since we didn't need the variance at that on those sides, we just kind of said, hey, this is what we're doing.
Did he, at that time, the gentleman across the street express any?
He had said nothing to me.
Okay. Any of the other neighbors shown any?
Only the neighbor that had his picnic tables on my lawn.
Which is the behind the house?
Behind the house.
Okay.
He had to move his picnic tables. He wasn't happy.
Okay. That would be the guy, the house to the south, directly south of your house.
Correct.
This would be a weird request, Chairman, but I guess in the event, because in looking at the map, some of it makes sense and some of it doesn't. The fact that the fence on that side where the picnic tables were makes a little more sense because it's actually behind the house versus the front, what I consider the front, I know it isn't, which is affecting the neighbor across the street. That doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing in the neighborhood. In the event we were to consider giving you the back variance that you're looking for, would you consider moving the north side back to the back corner of the house, or maybe a few feet from the back corner of the house, so that it didn't look like a great wall across the front side of your house? Would you consider moving that back?
It could be done. I would prefer not to do it.
Okay.
How about planting some things in front to soften the view?
Certainly.
Can you do that? I
Certainly.
noticed in front of the house you have some bushes that look like they're probably about 4 feet tall. If you plant some of those in front, and that would take away from wall effect.
Certainly.
Willing to do that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a little confused here. This side and back and front business, I'm not getting it. When I came around your house, I went by the driveway, and then I stopped out there and looked at what I thought was the back of your house. This part.
That is what I'm putting the variance in for, yes, because I also consider that the back of my house, but the zoning laws say that the short side of your house is the back of the house. Yeah, so what I would consider the side yard, because there are no doors and no windows that face that portion of the yard, that's the side yard.
Now, are you considering fencing the part of your yard that doesn't require a variance also?
Yes.
It's already done.
Okay, so we're talking about really this halfway around the house, fencing that in, is that right?
Only from the short side on the front, where the driveway is,
Yep.
back, and then about maybe a third of the way down the yard, that direction, because the other house, the back of their foundation is about a third of the yard
I
back.
can remember thinking to myself, wow, I don't blame you. Because there's really no other room in that other house that's right up to the line.
Exactly.
So I'm also thinking that if I live in that other house, how would I feel about that?
Right.
I'm not sure that's what this complaint is coming from.
No.
You know, the guy here. But
It's a different person, across from the
front
other
door.
side of the house, I guess. The people who live where the fence is covering are not home ever. There's one person that comes and mows the lawn once every couple weeks, but other than that, there's nobody there currently.
I also was thinking, I agree that you need some privacy there. And if I live behind it, I guess the thing that bothered me was a white fence, a big white fence. And I thought, well, that's no big deal. I'm sure he didn't buy this stuff yet before he got his permit.
It came from another house. We moved this year, so it came with us when we moved.
Came with us, oh,
Yeah.
okay, came with you. Because I was thinking if you soften it with those dog ear fences or something that looks a little bit more, I don't know, neighborhood friendly. But that's obviously out of the question because you've already got your materials.
Right. And if you look around the neighborhood, there are other fences that are very similar to ours. So other people have put them up.
Okay, I think I got the picture now.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I know.
All right. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the application?
Good evening. My name is Marilyn Kepler. I live at 115 Creekside Drive in Arundecoit. I live across the street from this house. There is a backyard that, when you go out, they have a sliding glass door that goes out to the backyard. So if you went from the end of the garage by the driveway to, if you look at the picture, if you move the fence back to the back of the east side, move it back to the back line, they have a backyard back there. There's no need to have a 6-foot fence in the front of the house. A 4-foot fence, which some design or something, it wouldn't be bad. But it's just a bad site. I've lived in the house that I live in since 1960. Okay? Never had anything look like that in the neighborhood. There is no place else in the neighborhood that it looks like that.
The fence that you're talking about where he should put it is what he's asking for the variance for because the code doesn't allow the fence there.
Well, he has it in the front of the house already.
Well, except that the fence that he has there already is permitted under the code where it is. It doesn't require any variance.
It's a front yard, though.
No, it's, the town code defines a corner lot. The front of a corner lot is the short side of the lot. So his front is on the west side of the lot.
The driveway.
The driveway
is
side
legally, where
is
the
the
driveway
front
is,
of his
is the front
house.
of his house.
So,
Under the
but
code.
that's not his address.
That doesn't,
Under
that
the
has
code.
nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
The
This
fence that's up is up under the code, and it's legal, and it's not involved in anything before us for the variance. The fence that he wants to put up, that he needs the variance for, is the one that you were suggesting that he put up.
But Chairman, can I interrupt in reference to what the code shows, what the layout is based on what the town determines should and can be the front yard, and what common sense shows everybody on this board knows that the front door is facing a side, so that,
Whoever said that the law makes any common sense?
Well,
Come on.
but
And there you
somewhere
have it.
along the
That's it.
line, we as board members have to kind of look at it and say, is it right or wrong?
Well, what has to happen
and-
is that the
Yeah,
town,
That's up to the
Well,
town
you have to
board,
consider
not-
this, you have to have a 30-foot rear setback, and that's the only way a lot of corner lots can have a 30-foot setback if the narrow portion of the lot is the front and follow to the back.
I
that's
understand
just-
all
that's
the legalese of it, but
And-
again,
and remember this,
looking
that-
at the way the house is
Yeah,
laid out.
But before the house is even built, it's already determined. So the house doesn't, it's already determined where the front, side, and rear is, so they can make code.
I believe
And the
what
house
Ms.
isn't even built, so
I
that's
believe
the
that
way it goes.
either way, the law is currently, as
get it.
confusing as it is, but the only people that have the power to change that are the town board. We don't have that. And the pictures that you show, definitely understand
Well,
the
wait,
pictures.
with exception. Hold
But
on.
definitely understand these pictures, but this is legal, and we don't have any jurisdiction over that.
Okay, but we do have the zoning right not to grant the part that he needs to have him change the other part. Just to make it aesthetically and neighborhood appealing.
Excuse me, can I intercede? Right over here, I think it's Cranbrook. The person originally put the 6-foot fence up to the front of the house.
I know
And
that.
you made them take it down and put 4 foot. And then towards the back, he put 6 to make it more.
I know
neigh-
that one, yep. Right out on Titus Avenue,
Right,
yep.
right there on the corner.
I don't know that it came in front of us
in
because
front of
it was
us.
it was changed prior to it actually, he put it up wrong and they told him and he took
And
it
he
down
took it
and
down.
changed it. It never came to us.
right, never asked for a variance. I'm not sure.
Didn't
that-
need a variance because he corrected it.
Right, I'm not sure. I'd defer to council as to whether or not we, as a condition of granting a variance, can require a change that's code compliant. Is that possible?
Yeah, that may not be a great idea to say that he couldn't do something that would otherwise be permitted under the code. I think that the conditions should more relate to making the fence that you are granting a variance for more acceptable or appealing by, whatever conditions the board may think are appropriate for that particular fence that requires a variance.
I would agree with that, in that the current fence that he has up, he has a legal right to. So if we were to put a condition on that would deprive him of that legal right so that we would give him the variance, I don't know that that would stand up in a court, unfortunately.
I would consider that too bad.
I think
Or unfortunate.
It goes back to the problem that we wrestle with frequently, which is the definition of a corner lot that doesn't allow
I understand that.
It doesn't allow us to take into account the fact that the front door is facing north, not west, and that to anybody who looks at it, the front of the house is on the north side. And
Again, part of our deliberation sometimes is the character of the neighborhood. And in the event of a aesthetically a pleasing fence, and that isn't, it changes the character of the neighborhood.
Well,
that fence isn't before us, unfortunately.
I get it.
And of course, the applicant can always realize that his neighbor across the street doesn't like it, and the applicant could always move it back. I mean, there's nothing to stop the applicant from being a good neighbor in terms of,
Or
doing
he
something
can
like
plant
that, putting the shrubs up or something like that.
4-foot shrubs in front of it, like I asked him about earlier, and soften the impact, but that's not, unfortunately, that's not in front of us because we don't have a flexible definition for a corner lot. I know the neighbor next to me is on the corner too, and it's the same thing. The house faces the other street, but his address is on our street, but the mailman doesn't deliver it facing our street. It's around the corner, and his side yard is what he uses as his backyard, and these corners are,
Another point is with the 6-foot fence being in the front of the house, back of the house, which, whatever it is now, that's going to allow the dogs to come up close to that. And now, right now, they're being tied out for the past year and a half, been tied out in the front yard. So they bark constantly when people go by. So now, with having the 6-foot fence at the front of the house, that's going to allow them to come, and we're going to still hear them.
I guess I don't quite understand the question there, because isn't one of the reasons these dogs react to goings-on in the neighborhood is because they can see them? And if they couldn't see them, they probably wouldn't even bother with it. I don't know. I mean, I've never studied, dogology or anything like that to know what turns them on and off. But the fact that
my understanding of what you were telling us was that you wanted him to put the fence in what every one of us would view as the backyard.
Correct.
Right. Which is where he's asking us to give him a variance to put the fence.
You mean back at to move that fence that he's got there
No.
back 6 feet?
No.
Unfortunately, he doesn't have to move.
He doesn't have to move it.
No, but where does he want to put the other part of the fence?
Running along the south line of his property.
His garage.
Which on the other side of the house from you.
Right.
And then up to by his garage, by where the second door is.
West side.
On the south side.
Southwest side.
What, southwest?
Southwest, yes.
Right.
Yeah. That's what he wants. That's what he's asking us to let him do. Which is what I thought you suggested that he should do.
Oh, where his patio is, his sliding glass door, his other side garage door is,
Yeah,
back garage door, whatever.
Right.
Front garage door. Well, this is just throws the whole neighborhood off.
I don't disagree with you, but that's because the town code defines a corner lot the way it defines it.
Okay, well, the house next door didn't do that. The house next door has it back.
Which house next door?
On the one that would be on Ellingwood and Creekside corner.
On the east side?
Yes.
Right. They don't have what?
Their fence is at the back of their garage, which would be,
Setback.
which would, if he moved his back to the back foundation, his fence would butt up to their fence for their backyard.
Okay, I'm not,
I think she's saying
How-
that there's a
if you're looking at the
property
front
that is
door of the
not on a
house to the
corner
left.
that has a different type of fence, but that's not a corner lot you're talking about,
It
is
is
that
a
correct?
corner lot,
It
corner
is?
of Ellingwood and
It's
Creekside.
this is his house.
Either
This is
way, the fence that we're talking about
There's
is
one
not
over
before
here
us.
that comes to here,
okay.
to the back corner, and this is a corner lot also. This guy put his back. He didn't bring it all the way out front.
Oh, all right. Well, he,
Well, he could have here, but he didn't.
yeah.
Right.
All right.
Okay, well, I just thought I'd make my point.
We
See that I
appreciate
have
it.
to look at this every day, walking out to my car and everything.
And one of the things that before you came in, we discussed with your neighbor was whether or not he would plant some 4-foot or so bushes in front of the fence to soften the impact for you. And he indicated that he would be willing to do that. So,
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
well, you don't hold me to it.
I'll hold him to that
Hold
then.
him to it.
Okay, thank you.
We made the request because of the concern, and we understand the reason and the nature of your concern about having that fence where it is. As we've pointed out, unfortunately, we don't have anything to say about that, but we did ask him, and he did agree that he would put bushes up 4-foot tight to soften that so it doesn't look quite like
Like
a wall.
arborvitaes and things like that.
Yeah, things like that.
Okay,
All
thank
right?
you. Mhm.
I just have one last question about that.
Sure.
Because I think we've done it before. We've granted variances with conditions.
Well,
Is that what we're talking about?
no,
here?
because the condition only applies to the variance, the area that the variance covers, and that fence isn't covered by the variance. That was a request in consideration of his neighbor to plant bushes in front of the legal portion of his fence. That has nothing to do with,
So we can't add that
So
as a
apart
condition.
from the.
I don't think we can add it as a condition of our
So,
of our variance.
any condition that you impose on any variance or any other approval is, the purpose of a condition has to be to minimize any impact from the result of the variance that you're granting. So if you were to say that, bushes needed to be in front of the portion of the fence that you were granting a variance for, that's a reasonable, relation to the potential impact of that fence. But to say that bushes in front of another portion that's legally existing can somehow minimize the impact of the new portion, if it's true because of some sort of view shed or something, okay. But if it's just because the property is before you, adding other what are perceived to be, bonuses to make it nicer aren't necessarily appropriate. There has to be a relation from the condition to the approval that you're granting.
And that would be like saying, we'll let you put up the fence, but you have to paint your house a different color because we don't like the color. You can't do that.
Donna, just another quick question. Was there a permit drawn before you started doing this fence?
I don't know. We'd have to ask him. I don't know.
Did you draw a permit when you started putting up the fence? Yes. Okay.
Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone that would like to talk to us about it? Okay.
Sure, I will. I just have a couple thoughts. And I don't know this gentleman, and I don't know this
Can you
woman.
state your
My
name and
name's
address?
Susan Buckman. I live at 45 Sherwood Avenue, Webster, New York. First of all, the animal rescue crew here, we do not like dogs being tied to trees or tied out. That's a no-no. And it sounds to me like this gentleman's trying to make arrangements so his dogs don't have to be tied. They can be out with an area to run. Dogs that are tied are often going to bark. I think with them just having a little more freedom and the privacy of the fence will help. My husband and I have many dogs, and we've never had a complaint from neighbors. We have a 4-foot fence. We have dogs that could easily clear that 4-foot fence if they wanted to. Luckily, they haven't. A 6-foot fence is much safer, keeps them contained. There's a law about dogs not roaming free. But I think, too, keeping the privacy with the fence he wants to put up where they won't see all the people. We have raspberry bushes that grow up real big outside our 4-foot fence in the summertime. Our dogs don't see all the activity at the school field, and they aren't barking. We also have a doggy door in and out of our home. And with multiple dogs, it's something we had to go to. And yeah, you're ruining a door, but you know how much a door costs? You know how much of a convenience it would be if you had fencing around an area where you could put a doggy door. When your dogs want to come in, they go in. When they need to go out, they can go out. They won't be barking. It'll be better for your dogs. You're at work, it starts thundering or raining. They can get in the house. I highly would suggest you consider that. If the fencing is going around an area with a door, that would be a huge plus for him. So these are just some things from what I'm picking up. I don't know how your house sits. It sounds very complicated. And I understand if neighbors are hearing dogs bark all the time, it can be a nuisance. We keep our front blinds all drawn so they don't see people walking up and down the street. I mean, we're very conscientious about that, and it sounds to me like you're trying to be. So consider some of those thoughts, and the fact that he doesn't want his dogs tied anymore, we give him 4 paws up for that. So work with them a little if you can, and work with putting the bushes out to keep your neighbors happy. They're your neighbors. You want to keep them happy. And that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Did the applicant wish to respond? Is there anything you wanted to add? You indicated you did obtain the permit before you took it up.
Yep, I had the permit before we put it up, and thank you for your comments. That's exactly what we're trying to do, is keep the dogs quiet so they can't see the people inside the fence and give them enough room to move around within the fence.
Okay. We'll close the case with respect to that matter and move on to the next case on the agenda.
ZB 1512-4, upon the matter request by Nicole Loomis and Elizabeth Grosses for an area variance to maintain a 6-foot-high side yard fence exceeding maximum permitted height on premises 485 Oak Ridge Drive in an R1 residential district.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Gross, and this is Nicole Loomis. We reside at 485 Oak Ridge Drive in Arundecoit.
Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I do. First off, I just wanted to thank all of you for being here to listen to our request for variance. We moved to Arundecoit in June, and shortly afterwards, we put in a fence. We unfortunately did not know about the code that it had to be less than 6 foot tall forward from the rear line of your house. And unfortunately, neither did our contractor. So we are requesting variance to keep our 6 foot fence.
As you all probably have the letter that we wrote, there's multiple reasons why we would prefer to have the 6 foot tall fence. One of them is for the dogs, as we just had a conversation about them sort of blocking the view from the front of the road, keeping them from barking, and, seeing traffic and people go by. And also just because our house is sort of limited with privacy in the backyard, the flat of the backyard, as you can tell maybe in the pictures, that it sort of starts to steep down into a hill, so we don't have much flat area to work with, and we wanted to put some grass there inside that area of the fence and have a nice outdoor living space. And also because we wanted a 6 foot tall fence because it looks right into our living room window, and so it gives us more privacy. We don't have curtains or blinds on our windows because there's so many trees there that the sunlight is already limited, so we like to keep that open so that we can get that sunlight to come into the windows. And the pictures as well to show that.
Now, attached to the, or part of the submission that you presented to us included signatures from neighbors who were not opposed to your application.
Correct.
There were 17 neighbors from 10 different properties.
Correct.
If I'm guessing correctly, you're at 485 Oak Ridge. What would be directly across the street from this property?
There's a house on the corner. It's a side lot. His side yard looks towards ours, and he actually has a fence as well, a 6 foot tall fence.
He's a corner house?
Yes.
So his side yard, as you defer it, would be the
Yes.
front yard, right?
It's very confusing, yes.
All right, so his front yard faces your front yard. Uses it
yes.
as his side yard.
Correct.
With his driveway, right? Like
His driveway's on the other road, not on.
road? Okay. All right, and then, so there's nobody who's directly across the street, looking across the street at your house and the fence?
Correct. He doesn't have a porch or anything. He has a fence. I believe he has a pool back there that, is probably why he wants the fence for privacy.
And am I correct from looking at the numbers on this that all of the people who surround your house have signed this?
Correct, yes. And as you can see on that list as well, that the majority, I think of all but one of those people on there have lived there for a significant amount of time. And most of them, when we approached them, weren't even aware that we had put a fence up.
One said he'd been there 50 years.
Correct. He lives diagonal the other direction on a corner lot. Yes.
The folks to the left of your house, did you have conversation with them?
Yes,
Are they on this list?
Left direct to the, if you're looking at our house.
Front door, the people that are affected by the left.
Yes,
portion.
we had a conversation before we put up the fence, and there was no opposition made at that time. There was a suggestion for an electric fence, which we weren't agreeable to, just because we don't.
An electric fence?
Correct, an invisible fence, which is electric shock for the dogs. Sorry. Not like a cow electric fence.
All right, okay.
That's another part of the code.
Yeah, I was. All right.
Which we didn't want because it doesn't keep the dogs from barking necessarily, because they can still see everything, and also it doesn't keep other dogs from coming into your property. So we didn't want that.
I can also tell you that anyone who's walking the neighborhood does not know where there's an
Correct.
invisible fence.
Yes.
What type of dogs do you have? Are they large dogs, small dogs?
They're small dogs.
So the height of this fence, if it were to be a 4 foot fence, I mean, obviously permit-wise, your contractor put it up before there was a permit?
Correct.
Okay, so nobody checked in and found out that it's not allowed.
No, but during the construction of the fence, we had a complaint from the neighbors, and I recommended, or I offered at that time to put it down to 4 foot, and they said that nothing could be done to please them, that they just didn't like the fence in general.
Where are these neighbors?
To the left. And we actually, as you can see in the pictures, we chose to stop the 6-foot tall fence and begin with the black chain link fence because we appreciate the beauty of the, the woods back there, and we didn't want to block that view from where they sit on their patio or their backyard with the grass. We wanted to have that be open and visible. So basically, where the 6-foot tall fence is just on the other side of their garage.
It does look awkward, the size of the fence. I'm not a large, tall fence person out front like that. In the event that you could cut it down, would you cut it down? I mean, as opposed to taking it down completely?
I would. I'd prefer not to. It's not the panels. It's all individual boards that were put up. They're all pressure treated. It would be very expensive to do that, especially because I offered to do that before and it, wasn't accepted then. I would be willing to stain it or put some shrubs in front of there. We were actually going to stain it, but the fence guy recommended not to do it for a year just because you're supposed to let it.
Who was the fencing company?
Belisky and Sons.
Okay. I just, again, that's one of the pet peeves I have of the fencing people in our area that put up fences without getting permits. I know it's supposed to be on the town, and I guess you could get a fine for not getting a permit and that, but I think they should be fined also for not doing it properly and giving you the proper advice.
Correct.
And getting the variance if you were going to get a variance ahead of time.
Right. It's done. So if there is a fine, that I'd be willing to pay it. I mean, it's understandable.
Well, I always one of these where if I didn't like it next to my house, I'd have a problem with it. And the size of it, the height of it, and driving up and down the street the other day, I knocked at the door. The dogs were barking. You guys weren't home, but there's no other large fence out like that that looks that setup on the whole street. And so it doesn't follow the character of the neighborhood.
Actually, there are other 6-foot tall fences. There's one actually just up the road on the same side.
But it was set back further. It wasn't
a little bit,
up.
yeah. Ours is 50 feet from the road. There's other ones actually off of List Avenue that are just on the other side of the sidewalk that are 6 foot tall. There's probably 6 or 7 of them just on my way to work that are just off the side of the sidewalk.
And those are all the corner lots that have the 6-foot fences on the
Correct,
side?
but if you're talking aesthetically pleasing.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't allow those either, but that's.
Right.
That's the corner lot
that
issue,
argument,
yes.
the last case.
Yeah. You said that you would stain it, you would it looks like you've got some rhododendrons or something in front of the house, maybe. I think in the past, these fences come up a lot, and when these situations come in, we've usually asked them to set them back at least slightly from the front edge of the house. But seeing as this one's already up, yeah, I'm just kind of wondering what kind of options you're.
Yeah, like I said, it'd be pricey to take it down and move it back. I'd be willing to stain it, a nice, like a walnut natural color, that kind of blended in. And we were planning on doing landscaping, but we just moved in, so we, a lot of things to work on.
Let me ask you a question. How was the fence put in? The poles?
Oh.
Are they in concrete?
Correct, yes.
Because it seems to me that if you were to take the fence out in the front and move it back, like 2 panels back on the side so that it was between the chimney and that large tree, that it wouldn't impact what you were looking for in terms of the dogs not seeing activity, but it would set it back from the front. The thing is with the 6-foot fences in front, it looks like the wall of the house is continuing over, and it's this. If it's set back a little, it at least softens the front. And I wouldn't think that moving that would be all that difficult. I would especially point out to your contractor that since he put it in without getting the permit, without checking, and without doing it, that he ought to move it for you at no expense to you. But that's between you and him.
Right.
And the town.
I guess if I had to move it back, then I would prefer to have 6 foot tall fence where that chain link fence begins to have some more privacy there.
So it goes 6 foot from the corner of the back corner of the house to the chain link fence.
Where the chain link starts, like continue the wood there.
Right.
So remove
And
the
that's-
chain link and continue with wood.
Correct.
I think you're okay under the code with putting 6-foot fence
Correct.
there.
But like I said, we were trying to do a compromise with keeping the open area in the back and for everybody.
But, okay.
It's a matter of opinion, I know, but if I was a neighbor sitting on my back patio, the wood fence isn't blocking their view right now of the backyard and that sort of thing. But if it were to continue down where the chain link is to give us privacy, if we have to move the front back, then that's blocking their view if they're sitting out on their patio. So I guess, do you want to see it when you pull in your driveway for 2 seconds when you're getting out of your car, or do you want to see it when you're sitting out on your patio?
Well, again, that falls into the character of the neighborhood driving down the road.
You can't-
They're all beautiful homes on that street.
Correct.
It's all very nice. So now that you're changing changing the character of the look of the front of the house, it makes it look more commercial. It makes it look kind of like the other one we were just talking about. It makes it's too large for where, and again, that's why the town code allowed 4-foot fences in that area.
So I just want to make sure I understand, out of the options, which you'd prefer. You would prefer, as opposed to having a 4-foot high fence, you'd prefer to move the entire 6-foot fence back to the rear foundation of the house if you were given the option.
I think so. I'd have to think about it. I mean, ultimately, I would prefer not to touch it because it's expensive and stain it or put some bushes.
Definitely understand that.
Which you would do anyway if you moved it back or if it was 4 foot tall. So,
So to my question again, if we had options, you would prefer to have a 6-foot high fence that's farther back as opposed to a 4-foot high fence where it stands. Because as Mr. Hinman, as the chairman suggested, between the tree and the chimney, it'd be moved back 6 feet or cut it down to 4 feet.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Are you talking to the rear of the chimney?
Yeah, from the pictures that you attached, it appears that I'm looking at attachment 3, I think it is. Yeah, attachment 3. It appears that the chimney, that there's a space between the chimney and that very large tree.
That large tree is actually back farther than the rear of the foundation.
Oh, even better.
So you
All
can
right,
put the fence
so
in front of the tree.
the fence could, I was talking
Back
about
corner of the house.
that if you moved it, there are a number of posts. And in looking at I was thinking if you went to the second post on the south side
Okay.
and ran the fence across from the house
Well, Mr.
to
Hinman,
that second post,
if
would
you're-
set it back
Mm-hmm.
and would be a compromise between having to cut it down, which I understand because it would entail quite a bit, and it's about halfway back the house. It gives you some of what you want, not all of it. It accommodates the others, and it's a way of not having the wall
Right.
approach in the front.
And I would be able to take the, remaining or leftover, fencing and replace the chain link there for added privacy.
That's, once you're behind the rear foundation of the house, I believe the code allows you to put up to a 6-foot fence. I would check with the town, and I would make sure you get a permit before you do anything like that, of course, but I believe that the code would allow you to do that, and
Okay.
you're within your rights if it's within the code. I mean, again, part of this problem is that, and we've had this situation before, where we've had people who put up fences without checking to see what the code requires, without getting the necessary permits, and then, and in some instances, we have not granted the variance because we have to find that there's a practical hardship to grant it. And, so that's why I was wondering about, you were talking about, it would be expensive to, move it and all that, but I think if you're talking about moving what's there back a few feet, that's, again, as I said earlier, that's something your contractor ought to be doing for you. Just my opinion there.
Do you want to talk to him for us?
Have him call the town and have them talk to him about putting fences up in a town without checking to
Yes.
see what the codes are. I think any
I would think
contractor
that-
who's halfway responsible checks with the municipality first to find out what the requirements are of the code. And somebody who doesn't do that is not doing himself or his customers a service.
Correct.
And that's why we're here. Any other questions or comments? I don't mean to monopolize anything.
No, not at all. Just speaking out loud, if you're going to move that section of the fence back, she could do it and move it to the back corner of the house, which would give her, based on the lot layout and where her patio is, would give her all the privacy for her patio in her backyard. And she wouldn't even need the variance at that point, because 6-foot fence would be allowed
Where's the patio?
perfect across from almost where the black fence ends, straight across to the corner of the house, and you wouldn't need a variance, and you could just change it.
Correct. The only thing that wouldn't solve is that our living room windows are right there and there'd be no privacy.
That I understand, but again, that's the style and the layout of the house, but, and then you'd have leftover fencing if you wanted to stretch it back into the backyard. From the side part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Step right up.
Hey, everybody. My name is Marty Fascioni. I live with my wife at 495 Oak Ridge. As you look at their house, we're directly to the right, so just to the north of their house. I brought pictures. So I was hanging out in my kitchen this morning. I didn't bring enough for everybody, so you gotta share.
You hand them to Brad and he'll pass them down.
So there's 3 copies. I want to address 3 different things. First, my wife and I go walking a ton with the dogs. The portion of the fence to the south is what you're talking about. I have no issue with that. However, our house is on the other side. So the pictures I'm just passing around were taken from my kitchen. So
we have application in front for the fence that's depicted in this as well.
Sorry?
This fence is in front of us as well. This is the north side fence?
That's the north side fence, right?
Yes, the north side fence and the south side fence are both in front of us tonight.
Okay. All right,
We're talking a lot about the south side.
Right, so this is the north side, because this is the one that's directly between us and our neighbors.
Right.
So our kitchen is in the front corner of our house and looks out right at, so that's looking out the window, facing south, looking at the neighbor's house. So the fence you see there is what they put in, and I just wanted to comment that, I'm really happy with it, because that stretch of, that little bit of land between our house and their house is on the north side of their driveway, and a little bit of land that people normally forget about, that they even own, and they put stuff there and then forget about it. Now with the fence there, they can put whatever, their garbage cans or whatever, on the side of their garage, like, people quite common do, put their garbage cans on the side of the garage. And the fence shields us looking, doing our dishes, or looking out the window from anything they want to put there. And so we're very, very happy with that. They typically come and go through the door right next to the garage. So it's just a bit of privacy that shields, them from us and us from them, and just so we're not staring at each other, which works out pretty well based on, where their driveway is and where our kitchen is. We spend most of our life in our kitchen.
This is out your kitchen window?
Yeah, that's out my kitchen window facing south. So facing their, if you, in that image, if you looked a little bit to your left, you would see their driveway.
Right. It's just, it's ironic because you're looking out your kitchen window right into their living room or dining room, straight across, because on
Yeah.
that side of the house,
Yeah, right.
the fence has been brought down to the 4-foot level, where it should have been in the first place. Now, it's not all 4-foot level all the way across along by her garage. It's 6 foot.
Yeah, it ramps up,
Right.
it was 6 foot, and we actually, when they were putting it in, we talked about it, and they were like, hey, do you want a 6 foot all along? I'm like, no, let's just kind of,
Right, but so they made some concessions on one side, not on the other, and again, it's the privacy issue had come up with them in reference to not being able to see in their windows, but yet you can see right in their window, right in, so not that
well,
I want you to, but
I never really noticed that. It's more for
Yeah.
privacy, them looking into my
both
kitchen,
of
I
you,
guess.
I
Yeah.
understand, but.
All right, so my next point is, I'm going to give you another picture. So the next one is looking out the back of my house across their backyard. And if you look really carefully in that picture, you can see the black chain link fence. They transitioned from the wood fence to the black chain link fence to fence in a big hunk of a pretty big hunk of their backyard for the dogs and things. And what's I think remarkable is it's really hard to see. So the black chain link fence kind of blends into the woods, and it's really hard to see. And it would be a shame if that came, they were talking about taking that down to make concessions for this, the south side of the fence of the house, talking about moving some of that 6 foot fence into the backyard. It would be a shame because, I don't mind that at all. I mean, it just blends into the trees and stuff, and you don't see it. If replacing that black chain link fence with a 6 foot fence to gain their privacy because we have to move the whole fence, that would be a bit of a shame. So I think they really had a lot of concern about how their fence that they wanted to put up to contain their dogs would impact their neighbors, and I thought they did a fantastic job of accommodating our view. Like, that's the view out of my backyard directly across their backyard, and it's almost as if there's no fence at all. It was really a lot of thought and concern put into making sure my views out my backyard were not compromised. All right, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wish to speak in opposition to this application?
Good evening. I'm Sean Grimes, the neighbor on the south side at 475 Oak Ridge Drive.
You don't get sworn in,
No?
just
All
the applicants.
right. Okay. I do have some photographs that I'd like to...
You live where? I'm sorry.
475 Oak Ridge Drive.
Okay.
I'm on the left side of 485.
Immediately south of 485.
Correct.
Okay.
So I guess this is the first time I've heard of fences becoming shades, people putting up 6 foot fences, for privacy with their windows, because we've got windows all around our house, and, maybe we could put a 6 foot fence all the way around it. So I've been a resident in the town of Arundecoit for over 10 years now. For many years I wanted to move onto Oak Ridge Drive. I have a small business in the town of Arundecoit. I've been up and down that street a lot over the past 12, 13 years while I've been in business, and I really wanted to move onto that street. It's kind of a unique neighborhood. It's what I feel is a jewel in Arundecoit. It's very wooded, private. Gives you the feel of kind of living in the country, but you're still 5 minutes from Wegmans. My wife and I started looking for houses, about 2 years before finding our home on Oak Ridge Drive. We actually went through about 3 houses on Oak Ridge Drive that weren't quite right. This home, the one we're in now, came on the market. It wasn't on the market a week. As soon as our realtor told us about it, we went in, we offered full asking price, no contingencies. We wanted it. We loved it. Why did we love it? Because of the yard. The gentleman that lived there, he took a lot of pride in that yard. He thought it was one of the nicest lots on the street. There's a beautiful backyard that the realtor, put in the ad, stating, a park-like setting, nature lover's dream. And once this fence was put up, it really changed that for us. I had a friend over last week that commented the chain link fence now that we look at in our backyard, which there's nothing we can do about. He said it looks like an exhibit at the Seneca Park Zoo. As far as the 6-foot high fence goes and the fence in general, my wife did have a conversation with the neighbors at 485 prior to them moving in, and they did mention that they were considering putting up a fence, and she did mention that we really appreciate the land, the yard the way it is, and we would be opposed to a fence in a nice way. She mentioned doing something like an invisible fence, just trying to throw out an option there, but not knowing your soon-to-be new neighbors, you tread carefully. You can't tell someone what to do in their yard, in their home or their future home. They did end up putting up a fence. They did end up doing it without a permit. They did construct this fence in direct violation of town code, going from the back of the house to the front of the house. You're not allowed to put a 6-foot high fence up. I don't see any reason why there should be a 6-foot high fence. If you look at the pictures, they did mention the flat area. You could see from the pictures in my backyard, there's plenty of flat area going from the back corner of their house into their backyard. So even if they brought it down to 4 foot, going to the front of the house, I don't see how that would change their usage of the flat area. One thing that in our neighborhood, there's a lot of wildlife, a lot of deer, turkey walking in the backyard. If you see in our pictures of our backyard, there are a lot of beautiful ferns. The deer now are stopped at that fence. They can't go further north unless they go down a steep hill. Now they just trample the ferns. Now they're eating the ferns, which they never did in our yard. So it's impacted the landscape in our yard. The fence that they've put up is right next to some trees on our property line. So down the road, the trees are going to grow into the fence, push the fence over, push the fence up. I don't think the land was taken into consideration when putting up this fence. And if they did want to bring that stockade fence, the 6-foot high wood fence down further to run a straight line, to go in line with their posts, they'd have to start cutting around trees. There's a pretty it's pretty aggressive terrain, as you could see, looking at the chain link fence, going with the stockade fence in the backyard. I don't think it's not going to be a very appealing fence, and I think that's going to impact our property value and the property value of some of the neighbors, especially the ones around us. The guy across the street that I think you guys have pictures of, he's got the red fence in his backyard going around a pool. And he does have a corner lot, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that fence. I think that fence was put up, per town code. And, lastly, as far as privacy goes, their living room windows or dining room windows or whatever windows that they're trying to, limit view, they're right next to our garage. So I don't think that there's a privacy issue with regard to that. And it's maybe 75 feet from the road, so I don't think anybody walking down the street is going to be able to see what's going on inside, their house. You got front windows that I think are, something you should be more concerned about than side windows. And that's it.
So the conversation about having a 6-foot high fence that far forward was never had in reference to having a fence, so.
It was, when we had a conversation with them, they had a conversation with my wife about that, and, I addressed that earlier. She was just trying to tread carefully. And, the day that the fence was already put up without a permit, 6 foot high, in violation of town code, one of the girls did say that they'd be happy to install it at 4 foot, but at that point my wife was very upset. She was crying. We just weren't in a place where we could start negotiating how this fence would look. We were both devastated, and we thought that it was going up legally, or that we thought that they had a permit and everything was going up the way it was supposed to, So we didn't feel comfortable telling them what they should and shouldn't do.
Okay.
And frankly, we think it's unfair that we have to be here tonight. We think that, when someone puts up a fence or does anything to their property, the town has codes. We're all supposed to get permits. We're supposed to follow the rules, and it's unfair that we have to be bad neighbors and come here tonight and express our opinion on this. The town has rules to protect us from this sort of thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Celia Grimes. I also reside at 475 Oak Ridge Drive. Sean's my husband. I'll try not to reiterate everything he said, but he just said something that wasn't planned that I want to touch on. He said the words bad neighbors. And first and foremost, I feel very sad that there's a certain opportunity loss, I think, in the sense that we like to be good neighbors. We're very outgoing. Our reputations, and standing in the community is important to us. And this fence has really destroyed more than our view. It's really destroyed the potential for a good neighborly relationship with our neighbors, which is really a shame. As was mentioned, it was actually me kind of trotting out to see, hey, are those the new neighbors? Before they'd even signed on the house, they were kind of walking around the backyard, and I jumped out and I was like, hey, I'm Celia. If you ever need a cup of sugar, trying to be neighborly. And they immediately said, yeah, we're just looking to see if we're thinking about putting up a fence. And my heart stopped and it started beating really fast like it is right now. And I said, oh gosh, you should live in the place for a while. Please live in the place for a while. We hope you get it. We bought this house for the backyard, period, end of story. The home was probably beautiful in 1950 for the Kodak execs that bought these homes on Oak Ridge Drive. Today, they need tons of renovation. We just finished the plans with Peter Weiner, who's also a Arundel Point resident, just did plans for alterations to our home, which will all be permitted, which will probably be subbed out to all Arundel Point contractors, and we're probably going to put another $100,000 into our house. We've got a huge investment, and we didn't invest in the property just because we thought it was the best house going. It was for the neighborhood. It's a forever wild in the back. It leads to Helmer Nature Center. The deer had an unobstructed path. It's turkeys. It's raccoons, squirrels, chipmunks. You guys know. You're Arundel Point people. That was what attracted us to this property. We feel very strongly that this fence devalues our property. Will it reduce our property value if we sold the house tomorrow? I can't say for certain, but what I can definitely tell you is that the one thing that attracted us to this house when Nothnagel listed it were the words, Nature Lover's Paradise, on one of Arundel Point's premier lots, enjoy spectacular wooded views. That was what attracted us to this home. So if we're any, sign that could definitely deter a future person that drives by and sees this 6-foot stockade fence. I just wanted to also correct something, and I know I'm not under oath, but I would be happy to be under oath. I definitely voiced concerns about this fence. And as Sean said, when the fence was already erected, I came home from work, I had my briefcase in hand, and I literally had tears streaming down my face because I just couldn't believe what a monstrosity had been put up. I believe that the fence itself really is an eyesore. The two different types of fences is a particular issue for me. I could probably overcome the fence being a chain link fence at the proper height, or I could overcome the stockade fence being at a proper height, but the inconsistency of the two definitely detracts from our property. If Sean passed you the one picture, our patio, right smack dab in the view of our patio, is the split between the two fences. So you have 6 foot, 4 foot. And it's embarrassing now. We didn't have literally anyone over after this fence went up because it was just a real problem for us. We feel like zoning regulations and permit requirements are put in place to protect residents like us who, could potentially, be negatively affected. We definitely feel like this is not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood that we love so much. They're contrary to what they said, and you guys probably know better than I do. I don't know of a single other 6-foot stockade fence on Oak Ridge Drive, the whole of Oak Ridge Drive. Certainly not in any of the surrounding homes. And our home is definitely, because we are the next door neighbor, we're the most affected by this fence. The variance, as you know, is for taller than 4 foot, but I find it particularly tiresome that they also, should be here for failure to get a proper permit. I feel like, they shouldn't be rewarded, and their fence company shouldn't be rewarded for doing things improperly. Now that it's up, I think that they're taking the position that, oh, well, our bad, but, we'll make amends. I don't see amends that can really satisfy us in that if you look at the survey, they put their fence smack dab, here's their lot, here's ours, the fence is on the property line, so even shrubbery would appear on our property. So that is another problem because, say they wanted to put up arborvitaes to cover it, those are going to be now on our property line. Also, their contractor destroyed our yard when they put the fence in for an area like this that seemed excessive. Everything died. I just definitely feel that the two fence types, the fact that the animals can't pass through, the fact that they did it, not only without our buy-off, but really with what I consider no attempt to communicate with us as neighbors, because we're really nice people. We have no problems with any of our other neighbors at all, and really, this has just been such it's introduced such disharmony that we really don't even speak to our neighbors. And that's a terrible thing for someone that's trying to settle in a neighborhood and stay there for the long term, which always was our plan. So, those are my thoughts.
I just have a question in reference to you and your husband preference, and I guess the option would be lowering the wood fence to a 4 foot around that area, or backing it up to the back corner of the house and letting them keep it at 6 foot, which is code. Is there a preference for you two guys, which would be more aesthetically appealing?
I feel like, Sean and I have talked at length, and we were prepared to spend thousands on arborvitaes until we learned that really they will be eaten and they will be decimated by the deer. So we decided not to do that. And like I mentioned, the fence is on the property line, so any shrubberies are going to be on our side. I think a 4 foot fence is a lot easier to conceal with shrubberies, so we wouldn't have to have these massive things. So unless Sean shakes his head no, I think our preference would be to have them cut it to 4 feet and then do whatever. We don't want to keep them, people need to be able to erect within the limits of the law what they want to on their properties. They invest in their property just like we did in ours, and I wouldn't keep that from them. But I would like to be able to reasonably conceal that so that it's not the first thing you see when you pull into our driveway.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, one other thing, and the fence company, I don't know these fence people. I'm sure they're perfectly nice people, but I don't like the idea of people operating West Irondequoit without permits. And it frustrates me that they can get away with it. And in fact, when the fence was going up, there was a piece of paper posted in the window that we assumed was a permit, and that's why we didn't make a stink or call the town because we're like, oh, shh, they have a permit. Well, I guess they're doing it right. And it wasn't until later when a contractor friend came over to our house for dinner, he's like, did they get a variance for that? And we're like, no, what's a variance? We knew nothing about this. And he explained it to us. So, I feel like there's some deliberate, misleading there, both of the neighbors and of anyone else paying attention. And I don't respect that kind of dishonesty.
Well, and it is a pet peeve of mine in reference to the fencing companies, because they will erect any fence that the homeowner asks for, and very few of them will guide them based on our town code. And it is a pet peeve of mine also that I think the fencing companies should be held as liable as the homeowner, and then some. Unfortunately, we don't have anything in our town laws or codes right now saying that the fence people should be liable. But, these folks might not have known whether they did or not, and because...
I don't think they did.
Well, and they might not have, and that's happened before. But then, hey, it's like the chairman was saying, if they get the fence people to come back and change it, they should do it at the fence people's cost.
The fence people's expense, absolutely.
Right.
Because
But again, the way it is right now is awkward at best, and I think they're doing a dishonest service to our Arundecoit residents by just go ahead and put it anywhere and, ask for forgiveness later.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I mean, it begs the question, as easily as it could be a fence, it could be electrical. If an electrician went in and did work not to code and the house got set on fire, then, we could potentially lose our property. So there's reasons that you get permits, there's reasons that you do things to code. And I would question, if this guy didn't know enough to encourage them to get a permit, did he even put it into code? Is it a safe fence? It's not the best looking fence I've seen. So I would question that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition to the application? Is there anything else that the applicants would like to add?
I'd just like to say a couple things to what they said. First of all, as far as the deer and the nature and things like that, I actually have a picture of a deer 8-point buck right 10 feet from my sliding glass doors in the backyard. They jump over the 4-foot chain link fence all the time. The turkeys as well are back there, so that does not limit the nature coming in and out. I see deer back there all the time, and also I was thinking, James, you had asked about a 6-foot fence versus cutting it down to 4. Moving the 6-foot fence back would solve the problem of privacy. I'm 5'8", so a 4-foot tall fence isn't going to do much for me. I'm going to see right over top of it as far as privacy. So I think I would prefer to have the 6-foot tall fence back and farther down to have privacy as far as that goes. But that also limits they have a nice flat backyard. Ours is not like that. Ours shoots down pretty steep very quickly, so it would limit the flat, grassland that we could have. And as far as, they'd said that they purchased the house because of the nature in the backyard and things like that. I don't feel that the wood fence inhibits the backyard at all. It's up next to the garage. It's, unless you're sitting on the side of the garage having a dinner or something, it's not limiting that view as far as the backyard.
What was the name of the fence company? I'm just curious.
You had already asked that. Beliski and Sons?
Beliski?
And if we were aware of Annie and I both just bought this house in June. We're both come from Pennsylvania, so we were unaware of the laws. But if we had known about them, if he would have told us, then we certainly would have gone through with them.
Again, it's happened before, but it's unfortunate because it is very obvious now that the two neighbors are at odds, and it's too bad because you guys shouldn't be. You're new neighbors.
Correct.
Right. But.
And that's why we had mentioned it prior, and like I said, there was no opposition made.
If I was living next door and somebody did that in my neighborhood, I wouldn't like it either. And again, it's one of those.
I guess we thought of it in that way if we were them, and honestly, I would have appreciated it because they got the nice side of the fence. It gives them some privacy on their patio, because otherwise if they're on their patio and we're on ours, we're staring at each other.
I live in an area in the town that's unique, and it's in a little valley area, and I have a chain link fence in my backyard, but I can see down the whole block in my backyard out my windows, and that's why I bought the house. So I understand their wanting to have it all open, as opposed to having the walls.
It is open in the back, though. That's
But
the thing.
again, even in the whole, looking at the house as a whole, I understand where they're coming from, and unfortunately, the code reads the way it reads, and
Correct.
so going back to what you would like, if we changed things and said it's not allowed, take it to the back wall at 6 foot, or allow you to do a 4 foot, lower it and bring it 4 foot out front, what would you prefer?
I'd prefer the 6 foot.
Back to the lot, to the way it's supposed to be, which wouldn't require a permit.
Correct.
I don't think
Or
either
it wouldn't require a
either of
variance.
those options would require a variance.
Right.
Both of those options are perfectly
Right.
legal, 4
Okay.
foot or the high one.
Okay.
And I would also like to say that, it is a very neighborly neighborhood. People know each other. Every single one of those people on that signed that paper for us had never met those neighbors. So,
Again, they're the ones most directly affected.
well, I know, I'm just,
And your reasoning earlier was privacy through the side windows.
Yes, which we
Yet
would
the
lose that.
The neighbor on the other side's got a picture out of his kitchen window looking right into the front of your house.
it looks into my dining room, but I don't hang out in my dining room in my underwear.
I understand, but again, and that was tiered down to their request, and the other side wasn't. So,
It wasn't tiered down for that purpose.
well, he made it out to be that it might have been, but I whatever. But it is tiered down as opposed to the other side. There's no exception. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Again, I understand it's not 100% your fault because of the fence company, but it is your home, so.
That it is. Thanks.
And, I mean, the issue of people installing contractors doing something illegal, it's clearly outside of our jurisdiction, but I would assume that the small claims court here in Arundecoit would have jurisdiction over a contractor installing an illegal fence. That's all I'll say.
There you go. All right.
It's an
We're gonna-
option for them.
We're going to close the case with respect to that matter and move on to our next item.
May I address the board as a point of order on the matter before the board now? A general issue?
Sure.
Thank you. Reed Miko, 116 Pinecrest Drive. I kind of, having spent a lot of money and getting permits in our own house, and I look at the municipality what kind of options do you have when somebody comes, we hear this is a concern for the board, when somebody comes and does work on a property without a permit? And then that phrase, it's easier to get forgiveness than it is to get permission, comes to mind. We don't know, I don't know this company, I'm not gunning for this company particularly, but I think it is really a valid concern for the board. It's something that the board would have, maybe the town might have liability on, when we don't know whether they're practicing and they have licenses, or what kinds of things generally are required. Do they meet those requirements? So for the same company that didn't obtain a permit, unknowingly or intentionally, to come back and do the work, I think the board should look at and say, is that company up to snuff to doing this work? The remedy is really of the homeowner against the company that did the work. That burden shouldn't be placed on whoever it is that's most affected by the unpermitted work. And that shifting, I think, is problematic, and problematic for the municipality. It should go to the insurance of the business doing the work to begin with that was unpermitted. And then secondly, to the homeowners, because it's our obligation as homeowners to know the laws of the municipality in which we live, just like there's laws that affect me and my license for a dog. I have to have a license for a dog. I have to have a license for a car. This is where I live. These are the laws. I'm obligated to know them. So basically, if the fence were permitted and legal, the due process would have been met, and it can't kind of be done retrospectively. I would caution allowing, just generally, allowing any company to go in and continue work where it didn't have a permit to do the work beforehand without the board examining that company. Some thoughts for the operation of the town, since my investment in my home is important to me and my community is too. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to move on to the next case. I will point out, though, that for those who are watching and who are here, that what is in front of us is an application for a variance. We do not have any authority over licensing contractors or imposing requirements that contractors advise homeowners of, permit requirements and things of that nature. Those are all matters for the town board, and the zoning ordinance specifically allows homeowners to request variances from the code, and that's why we're here, and that's what we take up, and that's what we consider, and sometimes we grant them, and sometimes we deny them, and sometimes people get forgiveness when they didn't seek permission, and sometimes people don't get forgiveness when they didn't seek permission. And we've had all sorts of those situations occur in the time that I've been on the board now, which I think is about, I want to say 10 years, but I might be a little off. And we'll continue to do that.
Okay. Next case, ZB 1512-5. Upon the matter of request by David Allen, acting as agent for Newport Highlands, for an area variance to install a new freestanding sign with less than required front setback and exceeding maximum permitted square footage allowed on premises 2750 Norton Street, Newport Highlands, also known as 140 Edge Creek Trail, in an R5 residential district.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peggy Taylor. I live at 94 Summit Street in Fairport. This is obviously Dave Allen, community manager at Newport Highlands, the applicant for this variance. I believe oh, yes, sir.
Raise your right
sorry.
hands.
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
I asked Dave to come up here with me because he did such a good job of measuring off the plot of land that we are appealing to you to install a new sign. Newport Highlands was built, I think, in the mid to 1981, okay. 84. And the sign that was there at the front of the property is the only identification for Newport Highlands, which is a multifamily rental community. And in line with some other major improvements we've made at the property, we wanted a new sign for the front of the property as the main identification. The pictures you might have in your packet of a dark green V-shaped sign is the original signage. It was enormous, took up a lot of footprint in the front of which is the only place to put the sign. It was a V-shaped. It took up approximately 80 square feet if we measured correctly. And in the course of thinking about a new design, we wanted to go to just a double face sign perpendicular to the road so it's visible for prospective traffic going up and down Norton Street. And so when Dave approached the town to look into getting the required permit, he spoke with Donna, who was very helpful, received a copy of the ordinance, which in our cover letter explains that the required setback positions the new sign in a spot in that it's only 40 feet from the road to our parking lot curb. So to erect the new sign at the 15-foot setback places it along a line of trees, so it's going to be very hard to see for traffic coming up and down, to visibly see both sides of the sign going up and down Norton Street.
Was the old sign within the proper setback? Was it set back the 15 feet?
No,
How far back was it?
approximately 3 foot.
This green sign?
That's the
Is
green
3
sign.
feet from the road?
3 feet from the 3 feet from the 15-foot.
So was there a variance for that other one?
It's supposed to be 25 foot from the 15 foot from the property line of our property line, which would, like Peggy had said, that would put us almost into our parking lot. So that the old V sign that we had there was approximately 3 foot from the 25-foot property line from the road to our property line.
So it's this diagram that shows 25 feet from the actual start of Norton Street Road. Here's the 25 feet. 3 feet from that line was the old V-shaped sign. It was not attractive. The shrubbery around it is not attractive. We feel like the new design of the new sign, which is, again, bigger than the ordinance provides also, we're proposing should go in about the same spot as the original sign was.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah,
It's
so
the
a
same-
long
so
way
it'd
about
be
it,
the
sorry
same
about that.
location,
Yeah, same
approximately
location.
But to answer your question, we couldn't find a variance. We couldn't even find a building permit for the last sign.
Right,
so-
right. And so going back to 84, it was hard to see what was said about
So
at
you're
that
looking
time.
for a sign that's in approximately the same location, that's a little bigger, except
Yes,
instead
sir.
of two signs, it'd be one sign
One
that's
sign.
a little larger.
Smaller
correct?
footprint, it's a whole new flower bed built around it, so it's going to be visually much more appealing than that old-fashioned one.
It's almost half the square footage of the old sign as well.
Because it's one sign.
Yes, exactly.
A
So-
handsome-looking sign.
Yes, well, I hope you, yes, we try to pull in the color scheme and make it much more updated. It's very important to us. We've put in a lot of money into the property with complete asphalt resurfacing, all brand-new roofs. We have continuing improvements on the interiors of the apartments. It's a quality property. It's meticulously maintained. And we just wanted the sign to give us a little bit of an update and then provide the visibility that we need to market the property.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about signs on Norton Road or anything like that that's related to this? Seeing none, we will close the hearing with respect to this case.
Thank you.
And we will be in recess until 9:30. All right, it's 9:30, so we will get underway. In order to determine the order in which we call them, I will ask if the applicants, when I call the address, if the applicants just let me know if they're here. 8 Madison Terrace, 892 East Ridge Road, I know you're here. 116 Creekside, 485 Oak Ridge, and 140 Edge Creek Trail. I will take them in the order that they're on. I think this is the first time in a long time that all the applicants have stayed. All right, the first application, excuse me a minute here. Where are my sheets? There they are. All right, the first matter is the application pertaining to 8 Madison Terrace. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Is there a motion with respect to this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Oh, you going to?
I just wanted to talk about it before. Can we do that?
Well, what we do is we have a motion first, then we open it to discussion.
All right, go ahead.
So, Mr. Thomas, you wanted to make a motion?
Yes, and I still do.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the application for the expanded driveway at 8 Madison Terrace with the following findings. It's not going to change the character of the neighborhood, except for the better. There is no alternatives that you could do without requiring a variance, because that's the nature of the beast down there in White City. You need a variance to sneeze, I think, down there, technically. There's not a substantial request, because basically it's a pretty small area. It'll make the most use of what area is there. There will be no effect on the physical or the environmental conditions, because we're talking about some pavers here. And the situation is not self-created, because when you purchase a place in White City, you get what you get, and then you make it better if you can. So that's the basis of the motion.
I'll second it.
Mike. All right, we'll open the motion to discussion.
I believe that there's an alternative to this variance, and that's that there is enough room to park 2 cars in the existing driveway, and there's a spot in the garage for the third. I don't think that the variance is necessary to park 3 vehicles there. There's already the existing conditions permit it. I think that it takes away from the on-street parking, because if we're making the driveway wider, then it's less opportunities for other people to park, because then they would be blocking in their driveway. I think that it is a change to the character of the neighborhood, and I realize that that neighborhood is very different than other neighborhoods in the community, and that's why I went 2 times to look. But there's a lot of other neighborhoods in Irondequoit with 1-car wide driveways where residents have to do the shuffle to move vehicles out, and if we allow people in other neighborhoods to open and put more paving in front of their houses, that would change the character of those neighborhoods too. But I think that the opportunity exists right now, the way it is, for 3 vehicles to be parked there.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, just to justify, and I understand your concerns, but just to justify, the overall sizes of those streets are very, very, very tight. I drive a full-size truck, and just going down into the street, and I couldn't even pull in. There was nobody home, and I found it awkward to even try to pull into the driveway and back around and come back out. So I ended up going down a few, and then I realized I can't turn around at all, so I ended up backing out of the street. So in reference to a safety versus, and there are a lot of people that have cars, more than 1 car. I mean, if you have 2 people that have cars in the house, then you got a third person, a child, or you have any relatives or anybody, friends that stop by, it's easy to have 2, 3, 4 cars in your, and then times the rest of that street. I know there's people across the street. When I was there on Sunday, there was 6 cars on the paving, part on the paving, part on the grass, part on the front area that looked like it was just dirt. So the fact that she's trying to add some space for a little room, I guess I'd like to grant it to her. Based on it, it's an awkward situation. I understand your feelings on it, but it's better than parking on the front lawn, which I think some of them do when they need to, and at least she's going to do it up nice.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those...
I would just say that I agree that this is a tough one. If it weren't for the fact that it's on one of the terrace streets in that area, there's no way I would vote for it. But if we recognize that it is on that street, I think that is a very important factor that would make this case different from any other streets in the entire town of Arundequoit.
The other quick thing is she's using pavers, which we had one of these streets prior to this a few years back that we talked about using pavers versus paving it because of the water drain off issue. And they suggested back then, I forget who was on the board, but someone was adamant about using pavers just so that the water would settle through. So it wasn't going into the storm drain by adding more pavement.
That was on Carlin Drive.
It was on one of the terraces.
The old school, and they put down
grass
the
pavers,
paving, grass pavers where they set,
Yeah, I think
so
we used
grass
that as
grows
an
up in the
example,
holes, but you park on them and they're solid enough for the
Right.
cars.
But we
the-
talked about
Yeah.
one of the terraces needed extra parking.
Mhm.
But anyway,
Yeah.
the fact that she's using the pavers and the water will drain through them easier, I guess.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries, 6 votes in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions. We are all present. Moving on to the next case is the application pertaining to 892 East Ridge Road.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a
But before we do that, we have to do the seeker. We've had a short environmental assessment form has been prepared that indicates that if granted, the proposed action would have no or small impact on the environment in the area. I would move that we adopt the finding of no or minimal or small impact.
So it would be a negative declaration.
Negative
then.
declaration, thank you. Yes, that was slipping the mind here.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. And now, does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to the variance?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the requested variance. This is a use variance. We haven't seen a nice, neat little spreadsheet that tidies up the financial position, but I think we've seen enough of information that he's provided us that we can draw the conclusion that financially, in order to create a reasonable rate of return, he really needs to get into the boarding business. It's not a unique hardship. Doesn't apply to other portions of the neighborhood. It applies to this business, and it's the only boarding business in the area. Certainly does not change the character of the neighborhood. In fact, I think some might think that it may add to the character. It's nice to have dogs in the area. The alleged hardship has not been self-created. I guess you could argue with that because he is running a business and he has to expand his business in order to keep his business financially healthy. So to that point, I would recommend that we approve the variance.
And I'll second that motion, and I would just add that I would, I guess, echo the comments that while there was no spreadsheet with financial data, the chairman did ask all of the right questions.
Correct.
And the applicant, under oath, provided testimony that he would not get a return on his investment unless that he goes through this, and he explained the dollar amounts and the percentages.
And I would just like to add, I think if the board wanted to consider this as part of its rationale as well, that I think another very relevant consideration as to the hardship of this particular applicant and this particular property involves the property itself, that it was stated that the property remained vacant for many years. It was not easy to find an appropriate tenant for this property, so not any use. It's obviously not as marketable as other commercial properties may be for any type of commercial use, and so this, it seems, is an appropriate one.
From the time they built that building, everything was oriented towards Ridge Road, and anyone who was in the basement underneath would be pretty much lost. So that it's a destination that you have to look for, and I can't recall another application that I've been on the board that's had 12 people come and speak in favor of it. So obviously, it is a draw to the location as opposed to being down in the basement and out of sight. So I think I would agree with that. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We all continue to be present. The next application is with respect to 116 Creekside Drive. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this application for the variance regarding the fencing at 116 Creekside Drive, considering the following findings. If the job is done right, there should not be a change to the character of the neighborhood. And when I say that, I'm going to say it with a sort of an asterisk by this, that maybe because the size and color of the fence might be offensive, that thought be given to softening the blow somehow, either with one side being a little more different color painted around, or at least shrubbery or something, to try to appease that one opposition. As far as the substantiality of the request is concerned, you're asking for a 6-foot variance. That's not huge. There should be no effect on the physical or environmental conditions if granted, because the house has got yard around it, it's a neighborhood. You don't have to worry about deer and turkeys running through at this particular point. And is the situation self-created? And yes, it is, in a sense. You have a plan, you know what you want to do, but that doesn't mean shouldn't be acceptable. Just because it's your idea, nobody else is telling you what to do. So I would support this variance and hope that the homeowner can get more pleasure for both him and the dogs and everybody else because of it.
I'll second it.
Yes. Okay. My sheets were mixed up here. Any discussion?
I just would, I understand the debate we had earlier in reference to the other part of the fence at the other side of the house. And I would hope that the gentleman would be neighborly and either consider moving that back a little bit, or if anything, make sure it's aesthetically pleasing to the neighbors. I don't particularly like the look of that fence at all, and again, I understand that he has the right to have that other piece there. However, if he could do whatever he can to make it fun for the whole neighborhood.
And I would add, I mean, I agree with my colleague that that other section of fence is ugly, and it looks like it's almost like a prison. It's got the same as the front, but unfortunately that issue is not before the board. So I would hope that the landowner would try to soften it for his neighbors, and I agree, it's a terribly ugly fence. However, that's not the issue that's before us.
I'll just throw out one other. My neighbor around the corner, not on the corner lot, has a 6-foot-high fence. She, of course, was an art teacher, and she has painted flowers on the fence and put a back coat in. It looks very, very nice. It looks natural, and so in addition to shrubbing, having somebody paint it might also be something to consider. All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? We are all present. Motion carries 6 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions, and we're, as I said, we're all present. Next item is the application pertaining to 485 Oak Ridge Drive. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion
Mr. Chairman,
with respect to this application?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we deny this application on the following grounds. The applicants have indicated that they're looking for some privacy, and I believe that there are feasible alternatives to obtaining the privacy, including blinds in the windows, and I understand that they don't want to do that, but they could plant shrubs, they could use those blinds. I think that the requested variance would be an undesirable change to the neighborhood. Again, it's the stockade fence that goes right along the front foundation line of the property. If people want that, they can move into the city, but in Arundecoit, our code says that's not allowed unless they can give a legitimate reason. They also talked about their dogs. However, they have a 4-foot-high chain link fence, which strongly suggests that the 6 feet is not necessary to contain their animals. I think that the request is substantial in that it can be seen from the street, and it does change the character of the neighborhood. Whether or not it has an adverse physical or environmental effect, I don't think is really relevant, and I do think that the difficulty is entirely self-created. I would also comment that while the contractor who is responsible for installing this may have done something that was illegal, I don't think that that would mitigate the fact that this is self-created and that those were agents of the property owners, and that the property owner, just like everyone else, ignorance of the law is not a defense to anything. So on those grounds, I would move that we deny the application.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no votes, no opposed, no abstentions, and we are all present. Next application pertains to 2750 Norton Street. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I guess I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion on 140 Edge Creek Trail that we approve. Excuse me. 2750 Norton Street, I'm sorry.
It's both.
I'm looking at the address. 2750 Norton Street on the sign approval. I don't believe that the variance is substantial. I don't believe that it will affect the character of the neighborhood. I do believe it is a self-created issue because they want a new sign. They took the other one down. It is not going to have an environmental issue. It is basically in a similar spot that the old sign was, so I don't think it's going to be any type of hindrance on the neighborhood. So based on the criteria, I believe we should approve it, and it's a good-looking sign.
Yes, it is.
Joe, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor. none against, no abstentions, and we're all still present. That concludes the agenda for this evening. With our packets, I believe everyone received a copy of the meeting minutes for the October 5th meeting and the November 2nd meeting, and I believe that with respect to the October 5th meeting, it lists Mr. Evans as being present, but I believe Mr. Huber was present that evening, right? So with the change in the listing of the board members who were present, does anyone have any other suggested changes or revisions to the minutes? I would move then that with respect to October 5th with that change and with respect to November 2nd as presented, that we approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and we are all present, and we're all present then. That concludes our agenda, and we are adjourned.